and gentlemen, dear colleagues, my name is Solymosi-Szekeres, and I had the honor to connect the Polish social law and the Hungarian social law. So I'm going to try to do that in the following 1 hour. It was just a joke, of course. Yes, everyone is tired, yes. Polish social law is very exciting and in many ways shares the fate of Hungarian social law. When I analyzed and interpreted the wonderful chapter written by Professor Michalski, several interesting points came to my attention, but I thought it would be more useful to choose one topic for this short commentary. The pension issue in Poland is very interesting and shows a decisive difference from the Hungarian solution. Let us look at the Polish system just shortly in relation to public pensions. The first pillar of the Polish pension system is a mandatory pay-as-you-go scheme based on notional defined contribution accounts or NDC accounts. The size of the pension depends on two basic parameters: the sum of indexed contributions and the average life expectancy at the time of retirement. This rule, the life expectancy method, is supposed to reduce the workers to take early retirement, as you can then expect a very low pension. This got me thinking, because pension calculation is currently based on a completely different basis in Hungary, or only partially. Allow me now to outline the history of this in the following, as it links Polish and Hungarian social policy at several points. In Hungary, a multi-element system was established in 1997. It's a bit tiny, but hopefully it's okay. Based on a new idea with a global foundation, the freedom of choice was then set against the state pension system that was seen as a part of the socialist past. The compulsory pension system became a two-pillar system, the first pillar being a pay-as-you-go compulsory social security pension subsystem, the second pillar being a compulsory funded private pension fund subsystem. The participants in the mandatory pension scheme could choose between two options. They could opt for the traditional social security pension scheme in its entirety, or they could opt for the so-called mixed funded scheme, which means they could remain members of the traditional scheme but could join a mandatory private pension fund of their choice. The private pension fund member then had to pay a membership fee to the fund and a smaller amount of contribution to the social security. But this new system has had an unintended effect. The government had expected around 500,000 people to join the mixed system, but the reality was already higher in the first year, with almost 1 million people joining the system. There were several reasons for this, like transparency, individual accounts, and the decision was often taken by the employer himself, because the banks and insurance companies running the funds offered them favorable package deals. Contributions to private pension funds have created a deficit in the social security pension system, which means a general government deficit has been incurred. In response to a Polish-Hungarian request, 9 EU countries asked the European Commission to change the rules for the calculating public deficit and debt to ensure that the EU takes into account the costs of pension reform. The EU did not agree the request, so nations had to act. This marked the beginning of a series of interventions in the private pension system in Hungary 15 years ago. In radical change and with much criticized speed, the three-pillar pension system was abolished, with all pension contributions going to the state pension fund. Private pension fund members had to declare in a short time that they wished to maintain their private pension fund membership or not, but in the absence of declaration, their membership was automatically terminated. The new law has also changed the status of those who remained in the private pension significantly, as the state budget guarantee for the claim of the fund members has been abolished. Beside the history of the pension of the two countries, we can find similarities in the actual systems and differences as well. The Hungarian state system works on different principles, as I mentioned, than the Polish state system. The Polish system takes life expectancy into account, but in the Hungarian state system it has no effect on the amount of the pension. However, this calculation method can be found in Hungary in the private pension funds that have been reduced by the state. I was wondering, which is more sustainable, which system? To discuss this, I read more about the private pension funds, which works with the life expectancy method. The mentioned reforms in Hungary have caused a huge storm with several related decisions by the Constitutional Court. There was a lot of discussion about who made the right decision, the one who stayed in private pension fund or those who left. There has been a lot of professional debate as well on the issue, which also touches the question of which is the more preferable calculation method, the one followed by the Hungarian system or the one followed by the Polish state system and the Hungarian private pension funds. We can see a comparison between the two systems on the slide, and both nations have weaknesses, I think, but the risk factors are different. The issue of the life expectancy as a criterion is problematic because of the life expectancy gap, which is an actuarial or insurance mathematical term. Life expectancy rises in parallel with lifetime earnings. The difference in life expectancy between the richest and the poorest is called the life expectancy gap, which also affects the income redistribution within the pension system and reduces degressivity. Put simply, a high-income person lives longer than the average calculated for him or her, and thus receives a disproportionately larger share of the pension than a low-income person who lives for a shorter period than the average. Here again, the idea of social justice is called into question since financial institution is well correlated with life expectancy, but this factor is not taken into account when determining the level of annuity payments. When talking about problematic legislation, we can find it in the Hungarian system as well. At present, the Hungarian state system does have, in fact, degressivity, but here we find a glaring shortcoming. The level of its application, which is linked to a specific amount in forint, has not been increased by the legislator for years, so that the real value of the pensions is constantly falling. In this respect, the Polish pension system is preferable, where the banded degression starts from as an average salary of 250%, so that in this system the real value is automatically equalized. As you can see, both regulations have systematical problems, but in a different way, although the common problem is around the corner. In the context of demographic crisis, it is important to retire as late as possible. Currently, the Hungarian system achieves this by setting a uniform retirement age of 65, but in the context of Women 40 scheme, all women who reach the length of service of 40 years receive a full early pension. This will not necessarily be the case for all women, of course. In comparison, the Polish state system is different. In 2017, as it was mentioned, there was a return to the old universal retirement age, 60 for women and 65 for men. Women are therefore more likely to go to pension earlier under the Polish system than in Hungary, where in 2020, according to the Central Statistical Office, women retired at an average age of 62. Whichever method is followed by the national systems, one thing is certain: a flexible increase in the retirement age is inevitable, but labor law programs will have to go hand in hand, I think, with this, as the employment of older people is problematic, not only in Poland but also in Hungary, and there is no need to list the reasons for that. However, age diversity could be a key element of corporate social responsibility, not to mention the increasingly promoted concept of lifelong learning. It is clear from this complex complex analysis that addressing the crisis of an aging society can only be achieved by taking into account both labor law and social law ideas, complemented by a close mathematical analysis. The next joint research could even combine the presentation of national thinking of specific issues like aging society from both labor law and social law perspectives, perhaps next year. Thank you for the kind attention.